Welcome to yet another brilliant BAFTA panel. My name is Elle Osili-Wood, and I'm just going to start off with a bit of housekeeping. So first up, we have got live closed captioning for tonight's masterclass. So if you need that, please check down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You should be able to select it down there. We're also going to have a Q&A, so that'll be in the final 15 minutes. So you can submit your questions all the way through, and we'll try and choose a selection right at the end. Apologies in advance if yours doesn't get chosen. We do just have a limited time, but please submit all the way through. We will get to them right at the end of the panel, which today is looking at Call of Duty. So obviously it is a juggernaut in the gaming world, and it has now been translated into an a BAFTA award-winning mobile game, Call of Duty Mobile. So here to talk to me today is Chris Plummer, who is Activision's VP of Mobile. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you because I have to say I was actually on the panel that picked the EE Mobile Game of the Year finalists, and this was one of my picks. I was so excited to see Call of Duty hit mobile, and a little bit trepidatious because obviously it's a game with a big reputation. For anybody who isn't kind of familiar with just how popular Call of Duty is, can you give us some facts and figures?
Well, Call of Duty has been one of the most popular video game franchises for over 15 years. So even if you talk to non-gamers, they've probably heard of Call of Duty. I think people have come to love sort of this really reliable, high production value, super tight control, really frenetic gunfights, and over the series, introducing iconic locations and multiplayer experiences that people really come to rely on. So it has a unique flavor, and we're just really excited that players enjoy it so much.
So you kind of mentioned there that Call of Duty experience, and I love that you said frenetic, because I was actually trying to describe it to somebody earlier, and I thought that's exactly it, that kind of fast-paced, frenetic, really kind of slick, first person experience. And so bringing that to mobile, I imagine is quite a challenge, because when we think of mobile games, perhaps unfairly, they have a reputation for being the lesser, section of the gaming industry, when actually we're seeing, that isn't really the case. And Call of Duty has been one of the games that has really kind of pioneered that. So what were the kind of characteristics of the Call of Duty experience that you knew you needed to have in a mobile game?
Well, for us, like, the best compliment we could ever get in a game like this is for people to say, wow, it feels like I was just playing Call of Duty. And that's the mission. So in order to break that down and figure out, well, what does it take to bring a true Call of Duty experience, it starts with really taking the greatest hits from the franchise. If we go back to the Black Ops series, Modern Warfare series, even Ghosts, we've tried to take the best content that players know and love, and this is stuff that's been battle tested over the ages. So it's the map designs and things are just super airtight, and we wanted to start with like that sort of environment, that setting that people know. But then it really gets down to the gameplay is the most important thing ultimately, and we have to have super tight controls. That's a challenge on any platform. I think when you're bringing something to mobile that is known for having such tight controls, it just takes a ton of time and iteration and a lot of player testing with real players who can get in and try it out and give us feedback so we can continue to iterate. So I think having the controls, having the locations, and then the production values is another big thing that people depend on or expect to see in a Call of Duty game. So making sure that the content is really kind of AAA quality from all the way through and through. And that creates its own set of challenges, again, on any platform, but particularly in mobile, where players aren't necessarily as accustomed to having sort of AAA caliber visuals and full presentation. So that takes a lot of care and effort to make sure that can come across right on the small screen. And when we do our jobs right, players will feel like they're playing Call of Duty. It's just in their pocket, and we want people to have that sort of familiar experience when they play Call of Duty mobile.
Of course, we have seen mobile games with Call of Duty elements in them before. So, what made you want to go all in? What made you decide, we need a Call of Duty mobile that is everything players would expect from a COD game?
Well, it's some point you've got to say, do we have to make compromises here in order to deliver this experience? I think we were at a point where we felt like we really didn't need to make compromises. It's really just a lot of discipline and taking attention to detail and the things that players expect from the franchise. Um, Otherwise, we wouldn't do it, and I think that's why you haven't seen an FPS with Call of Duty on it that's multiplayer, that's all of these things before, because we really wanted to make sure that we could deliver something authentic. And I think, our team is kind of a global team, has been able to really make that happen. And whether it's the initial experience when you play, to amount of content that's always coming into the game to keep it fresh, and the live operation of it, the cool activities and events, all of this feels familiar to people who've played Call of Duty. And if you haven't, we're going to introduce it in a way that we think lives up to everything that people know and love about the franchise.
So obviously you say, that you feel like this was the kind of first time you didn't have to make compromises. But, what were the biggest challenges? Because, it is, look, it's a BAFTA award-winning game. It feels incredible. But I assume, as you said, a huge amount of iteration and, just try again has gone into making it feel like that.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's a lot of try again, and just making sure there's tons of iteration time on gameplay, play testing, on feel, on balance. Some of the things you think would be the challenge, like it's on a smaller screen, but mobile phone screens are now quite high fidelity. They have a lot of pixels in them, and there's a lot of rendering power there. It's really the UX is another big challenge. We think about how do you bring all this feature richness into a user experience that you can easily interact with. And Call of Duty games traditionally have a ton of not just content but modes and lots of options and lots of configurability. It's a very custom experience, and we had to deliver that too. So I think the UX is something that was probably one of the bigger challenges, and making sure that players can interact and get to what they want to get to. And it's something, honestly, to this day we still iterate on and improve. And people who have been playing the game for a while probably notice us continuing to make those kinds of improvements, because there's always new features coming in, and you can't just kind of throw them in there. They have to it has to all flow together elegantly. So between controls, UX, and really, I think another challenge is just the amount of time it takes to create the content at the level of fidelity and the level of detail and performance that we need to deliver a real authentic Call of Duty experience. That's a lot of challenge to unpack into a new platform. And I think we're at a point now where we're kind of humming on hitting it on all cylinders, but it was challenging to get there.
And of course, you said there that you've kind of you've taken player feedback into account as you've been kind of going along and iterating. And obviously, you're at, I think, if I'm correct, 250 million installs. So obviously, you launched, you had that initial period where everybody was blown away and did think this is as good as we dared to dream. How do you then keep them engaged? How do you make sure that they don't just bounce off the title?
Well, live operation is really the heart and soul of what keeps the game interesting and exciting day after day. So it's one thing to get the gameplay, the core sort of gameplay experience, to a level that really can engage people and get them coming back for more. But for us, it's not enough to just have that. And I think for our players, it's not enough to just have a great experience for the first few weeks. There's an expectation that the game's going to remain fresh, and whether it's new modes, and we're frequently trying new modes in the game, new maps. There's a ton of new maps that have gone into the game, new event types, tons of new weapons and characters. I mean, every month we've actually switched our live cadence. There's an example of one of our recent seasons, Once Upon a Time in Rust. We've switched to a monthly cadence on these seasons, and you can just see the amount of stuff. This is in 1 month that's introduced fresh and new into the game, whether it's all new maps, whether it's the modes, the characters, the weapons, all this stuff. And then boom, the next month starts, we have a whole new theme, whole new set of content. Radio Activision is the season that just ended. So for those of you who are playing, you probably collected a lot of this stuff already through playing and engaging. And we just launched a brand new season kind of last night today. which is the Forge. So this is our brand new season. It has a little bit more of a kind of a Mad Maxy vibe to it. And we think that players are kind of enjoying that too. So there's the core Call of Duty kind of just mil-spec, authentic feel at the sort of underlying backbone of the entire game content. But then we inject some interesting themes on top of that that allow you to kind of bring those same weapons and gears and characters into new environments that tend to carry a theme. And the events are now starting to carry into those themes. And the players are giving us a ton of feedback on it. So this is really helpful for us because as we plan out future seasons, we're able to get a pretty, like a treasure trove of feedback from players who are constantly telling us, what things they liked about last season, what things they'd like to see better or different. And so hopefully players are noticing that improvement month after month. But this is how we keep people coming back. And this is really, that and just ongoing, tuning and improvement to the core experience.
So obviously that's a much faster pace than we see in kind of the console versions of Call of Duty. So what's it like kind of creating content that you want to have? It's Call of Duty is a prestige title. You're looking for a certain level of polish and finish. What's it like having to do that, but on to a much faster pace, month after month after month?
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of advanced planning, and the challenging factor is trying to marry that up with the ongoing player feedback that we're always receiving too. So sometimes we will change things pretty late in the game because of some feedback that's come in order to just try and get it just right. But we also have this advantage of being this unique Call of Duty game that's kind of the best of the kind of the greatest hits of the franchise, that we have a ton of content that we can draw from. So if we need, someone who's, fits a certain archetype on a character or a new type of weapon or something, there's a good chance there's something in the archives of Call of Duty that's already been, battle tested that we can bring in and sort of provide an accompaniment of other related thematic items with it, and to try and deliver on our monthly season cadence. But it is challenging. I mean, the team they're around the clock, and it's exhilarating. It's a ton of fun. I think they can feel it. Getting that kind of real-time feedback from players makes it all worthwhile, and we're getting better at it too. So I think we always feel like each season is a little bit better than the last.
So let's talk multiplayer, because at the end of the day, that is something Call of Duty is known for. And yet it's not something really that we think of with mobile games. When we first started to get these, very high level polished mobile games, they were kind of single player experiences. They did not include hundreds of players at one time. And yet that's such an important part of the COD experience. So how did you translate that? What was key for you in making that multiplayer COD multiplayer?
Honestly, the MP, we kind of internally call it MP, which is like the suite of like 5-on-5 modes predominantly. There's some other, we have 2v2 gunfight and some other modes that are also kind of at that same level of like intensity. That's where we started. I mean, that was the thing that we wanted to get right, and it is what people think of when they go back through the annals of time, like their favorite Call of Duty game. It was those moments playing MP with their friends and their rivals that they remember the most. And so that was our top priority. We had MP up and running and sort of getting that to fun before any UI was anywhere near presentable, before any other modes that you might have seen in the game were even stood up. And it continues to be the thing that we hammer on the most. If you play any other games in the space, Call of Duty Mobile is very unique in offering this type of gameplay at such a level of quality. So we are proud of that, and we also feel like it's a responsibility to make sure we keep it that way and keep it tight and fresh at all times. So that's where we started, and the control is really this kind of touches on controls, because MP is so frenetic, to use that word again, and visceral, that the controls just have to be super tight, and that forced a lot of decisions, I think, early on focusing on control and so forth. And the gunplay, everything kind of interacts with that. But one advantage we have, I think, is that so many of the maps were sort of battle tested by previous Call of Duty players and previous Call of Duty games, that we were able to just adapt them slightly to mobile to make sure the performance was there, to make sure that the frame rate, the responsiveness, the flow, everything was just right. But it's largely what you would see if you were firing up the same map on a big screen.
And so obviously, can you talk a little bit more about controls? Because this is the bit that I think for me, I was really excited about, because I really struggled to imagine just how that was going to play out, because, that kind of, twitch heavy, gunplay is so much part of Call of Duty that I just couldn't imagine how, I was going to do it on a screen, how it was going to feel with a finger. And as you said, you have managed to capture that, I'm saying it again, frenetic feel. So, where did you start with that? Where do you begin, creating a whole new control system for such an established game?
Well, there are many, many control schemes on the cutting room floor that were tried, and I think it's sort of a process of elimination, married with some things that were sort of standards that we're starting to develop. I mean, some of the core aspects of the controls have been around for a while, and it feels like the audiences have really kind of evolved in their tastes and willingness to try certain things, right? So, I mean, dual stick is even a question mark, 4 years ago, whether people would want to play a dual stick shooter. But we were able to kind of hear what people liked and didn't like about those experiences in other games, and then start to refine it for Call of Duty Mobile. Fortunately, we have over a decade of experience at the company on lots of little tricks and things you can do behind the scenes to get that feel right on using other control systems, and we were able to kind of apply that to Call of Duty Mobile. And ultimately, we ended up deciding on 2 different primary control systems in the game, because it's just such a personal, intimate taste thing that it's really not one size fits all. And so we have sort of our sort of basic control scheme that handles some things a bit more automated way, but it also has some disadvantages. So I think when people play it at first, like, oh wow, I can kind of auto fire with this, so I'm just going to wreck everybody. But the people who really know what they're doing can play in the pros controls, and they know how to lead a target, and they can do some things that auto firing won't let you do. So I think the best players will actually use the more advanced control scheme. But then from there, there's almost like a third level, which is you can absolutely configure the controls in 100 different ways. And so we have our kind of 2 main control schemes that are what most people use, frankly. But if you really like this button over here, you really like to fire that way, those customizations are available to you. And that's, again, another Call of Duty kind of classic element, is to put configurability into players' hands so that they can play the way they want to play, but do it in a way that's fair when they're engaging with the rest of the community. So I think, for us, it was a combination of heritage of the franchise, learning some of these tricks on how to unlock really great control, and being able to adapt that to mobile through a lot of iteration, a lot of play testing, and then providing these 2 different entry points so people can onboard easily, and a lot of people stick with that with those controls, or go into an advanced mode when they want to get a little bit more clever in how they play.
Well, if we're talking advanced modes, if we're talking those pro controls, esports, because that Call of Duty, if you grew up with Call of Duty, you grew up with Call of Duty esports. So how have you integrated that into this newest version of COD?
Yeah, so the Call of Duty Mobile World Championship presented by Sony Aspera is happening now. It's got a $1 million prize pool. For us, we see this as a super exciting way to sort of unlock the inner competitor in all of our players. They're already competing every time they play the game. They're just not competing for a prize, right? So by providing this structure for people, and it's a really cool structure where there's qualifying, sort of our first stage is qualifying. So we have solo qualifications, then you get into team qualifiers, and eventually into regional qualifiers. So there's multiple ways to get into the qualifying. And then you move into our championships, which will be toward the end of the year. But right now we're sort of at the end of our first set of regional qualifiers and the beginning of our second set of solo qualifiers. And anyone can actually qualify. All you have to do is fire up the game and play in our ranked mode. So we've had ranked mode since the very beginning. And ranked mode is very special. We set the rules for it. It's a level playing field for everyone. It's our most competitive way to play. but now you can actually aspire to and qualify for getting into our world championship just by playing the ranked mode the normal way. And we're getting a ton of great feedback from players. We've had a lot of people signing up. So we're really excited by it. And it's also a learning experience for us because we want to see kind of how players react to this because it's ingrained inside the game. It's not something you go, and play somewhere else. It's all basically built off of our internal ranked mode. So that's continuing. It started at the end of April and will continue the final phases where we get into the postseason will start in end of September, early October. So people can fire up right now, they fire up the game and still get in on the solo qualifiers. And if you're score enough points in ranked mode, you can form a team and then get onto the team qualifiers and eventually regional. So it's very cool. We're excited to just see how players like engage with it. And we also are offering prizes for engaging in it as well. And there'll be more about that later. There's obviously the $1 million purse, but we're offering other ways to engage and earn prizes through the World Championship. So more on that. Fire up the game and you can see how it all works today.
So how does it feel to see, people professionally competing in essentially this brand new version of your game? Is it exciting to realize that people have taken to it the way that they have?
Oh, we get a big thrill out of just watching the content that gets created around this. So, the people who are the elite competitors like to show people they're elite competitors. And so I personally enjoy watching the trick shots and some of the things that they can pull off because it's just, I consider myself okay player, but when I see them, it's just, it's inspiring. So to watch the level of competition is pretty cool. And I think people have found themselves in the regional qualifiers that maybe never thought of themselves ever as like, an esports athlete, but because we've integrated into the game and it's just, what do you got to lose? Just go ahead and sign up and start playing in ranked mode. And I know people every day are like, man, I'm level 150. I smoke every time in the seasons. I think I'm pretty good. I'm like, well, then try it, and then they're doing quite well. So I just like that, like unlocking that competitive spirit in our players and trying to reinforce it, give it a bit more authenticity, and is pretty cool. And so we're not done yet, though. We'll see how the rest of the season goes, and I'll keep watching.
So what tips do you have? I mean, not for me, I'm definitely one of those pro level players, but if you've got people who, as you said, kind of signed up at that entry level point where you are just kind of using auto aim, you are auto shoot, what do you need to be doing to get better? What are the kind of customization tips and tricks that are going to help you level up your play in COD Mobile?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just to keep playing the core loop of the game. So in COD Mobile, and I would try ranked play because ranked play takes a lot of the decisions. We make the decisions for you, like the maps and things like that are already decided, and you'll get a good representation and get to know a lot of maps that way. But the core loop is really like you're playing, you're choosing your weapon, and then by playing with that weapon, you're leveling it up, and that unlocks more attachments to it. Everyone can do that. It's just a grind to unlock those things. So it's pretty cool. All you have to do is put in some hours. Next thing you know, you've got all these different attachments to choose from, and figure out for each weapon, what's your personal play style. So some people like to, get a scope on there and go, long range, and other people will take the same weapon and prefer to just use a laser sight and for really quick attacks. So you can configure your weapon a little bit, almost like that's your character in a way. And just get to know and get to know each weapon archetype and get to know the feel for it. And that's my recommendation for people, because you might be surprised by the weapon that you end up liking the best. And we have so many different weapons in the game that you can go through that progression and you can level up each one of those weapons, unlock the cool things. And we have some really neat new features coming online for weapon progression that I won't kind of get into details here, but if you can get familiar with how our weapon leveling works, which is essentially unlocking cool attachments, we're continuing to invest in that weapon fantasy, and players tell us that is pretty much the thing that they care about the most in the game is like their how the weapon feels for them and having that capability to tweak it and control it. The only like reco I would have is like keep experimenting around with the controls, because eventually you're going to want to try the pro controls and do things like leading targets and things. And you can also manage your ammo more efficiently if you're playing that way. So, so those are just some of my tips. But main thing is just rack up some time in the game, and you'll get a feel for it quickly.
I love that. I have to say, one of the things that really surprised me was just how different the weapons would feel. Because again, that was something I wasn't hugely expecting on mobile, was to really feel a definite sense of, the different weaponry. So I absolutely love that, as you said, you do get a feel for what's going to work best with your playstyle. That's my favorite thing. I absolutely love, carefully picking my loadout.
And then certain maps, right? In certain maps, also, you might change your loadout, because the cool thing is, depending on the map, you will probably have a very different loadout, and over time you unlock those. That's part of the player progression, is you unlock additional loadouts, and you can just stack those up with different perks and with different abilities, and there's a lot of different ways you can configure yourself, and of course cosmetics. But at the end of the day, it's all about that weapon and how you've tricked it out and what types of attachments you put on it.
Yeah, it makes me feel amazing. So we've finished our section. I've asked all the questions I'm allowed to ask. Now I'm going to hand over to the audience. So we've had a couple of questions come in. So the first one, and I'm also very interested in this, is how do the audience demographics vary from console to mobile?
That's a good question. I mean, the audiences are, although there's definitely some overlap. I think our mobile players are bringing in a lot of new players that are new to the franchise. And so we feel like, on one hand, we already know this audience really well, but then all of a sudden we're bringing in a whole new people who play predominantly on mobile as their primary device. And I think that would be one of the biggest differences. That's not so much a demographic thing as it's like a behavior change, but, demographically, it's not entirely different. We have a little bit more of a even split, male, female, and that sort of thing. But I think it's really all about the play style and what's your primary platform. And most people, their primary platform is mobile when they're playing Call of Duty mobile.
So another question is, obviously we're starting to see support for controllers. And so do you find that creates balancing issues between trying to make it feel right for touch and controller, or do you just kind of prefer one or the other?
What I've found is, like, people who don't play a lot of mobile games tend to prefer trying the controller. But folks who play a lot of mobile games get really good with the touch screen. And we certainly spent the most time, that was the biggest challenge, is getting the touchscreen controls just right. So, I mean, with the controller, it maps so nicely to things that Call of Duty has done well for a long, long time that isn't as big of a challenge. So I think they're just different. It's like what your preference is. And I think when you move to any new platform, I even can remember I used to play PC shooters, and eventually they came to console, and that felt weird and different for a moment in time. And now more people play, on console. So with moving to mobile is similar. It's just going to feel different. If you're used to it, it's a different way. Then going with the control, the physical controller peripheral might help that transition better, because it's more familiar. But I think you end up playing it more if you get comfortable with the touchscreen controls, because you can stick it in your pocket, you can go to the bus, you can go in line, you can go out to eat, you can take it to work. And it's a little bit trickier to do that when you've got a controller you're also bringing along with you, although I'm sure some people do.
There's committed gamers, yeah. So we also had another question that's fantastic, which is, do you balance the game in the same way as you balance traditional console COD titles, or does it have, do you need to balance specifically for mobile?
I think the progression tuning and some of the things like that are definitely more, they're different on mobile. I mean, even our seasons are different on mobile, right? So that kind of monthly cadence on seasons is different than what's in console and PC. And that's just trying to, tailor the experience to what works best for mobile players. And wherever we see that opportunity, we'll take it. Things like weapons and those types of core things are very like Call of Duty. They're just kind of like cherished Call of Duty things. That you're going to see a lot more similarities there. So we apply the same philosophies and techniques, and then ultimately, if your movement speed and certain other things are different on a mobile device, which they are, then that's going to have a downstream effect on how the tuning works and what feels airtight and what feels COD. So it's not so much like copy and paste numbers from one game into the next. You really got to get the feel to be right. But in some areas, I think it's more different and more diversified than from the console experience than others.
Our next question, I'm not sure, isn't actually just from somebody at BAFTA, because it starts off with BAFTA is all about technical excellence. Is there one particular element of the title, UX, textures, etc., that you think is key to the success of the title?
Wow, it's hard to pick just one. It's kind of like how all those pieces come together for me. You can have the prettiest texture or the best soundtrack or the highest polygon models, but it's about getting the right kind of things to click, like that recipe to taste just right, which might mean it's not the most polygons or the highest res. It's the perfect combination of those things. So I feel like the technical achievement, and this is like the kind of nexus of technical and design, is how those pieces all come together. And that's the part that's super hard. Just working on games for a long time, you can have like one thing that's better than anything, but the game's not better than anything. It's how all the other pieces kind of come together. I'm definitely blown away by how it looks, though. And that is a lot of things all happening. There's atmospherics, there's lighting, there's the way the models are rendered and created and how they're constructed to begin with. All those things are really impressive to me. But I think it's honestly it's this how it all comes together is one thing, and it's at a consistent level. I think hitting consistency is probably more important for the overall experience to seem awesome than hitting one vector.
I think that actually leads quite nicely into our next question when we're talking about the elements coming together so well, and that they all need to be, of a very kind of particular level, which is, do you see this proliferation of AAA titles on mobile as a growing trend? Do you think it's something we're going to see more of?
I do. It's just given the success, it's what tends to happen, right? I think the challenge is it's a heavy lift. It's very difficult to bring something like that. So that would be the thing that slows it down. But I would not be surprised at all to see more AAA projects from other platforms adapted to mobile, and as more players are more comfortable with kind of real-time mobile controls. It used to be the very casual experiences were really the only thing that worked on mobile, and they're certainly the easiest UX to feel right. But now people are starting to really get a feel for higher fidelity, higher intensity experiences, and it's kind of changing everything.
So another question that I'm really interested in is, we were talking customizable control schemes, and somebody's asked, are there any fairness issues with allowing those? Do they get matched in the same games? Which is something I've never thought about before.
That's an excellent question, and it's something we certainly talked a lot about. Our solution is in a case where it does make a difference, because at some point a change might make a difference, and if it falls in that category, you do go into a separate matchmaking pool. And the line for us on that is the physical controller peripherals. So if you are playing with a physical controller and not a touch screen, you get matched with other people that are also playing with that control peripheral, and that seems fair. I think moving my button for grenade isn't, I don't know if that's an advantage that we would ever change matchmaking on, as an example. So that kind of thing we wouldn't change, but the peripheral device is one that we do actually match it differently.
So another question is, thinking back to kind of when you started, what were the early issues that you needed to iterate on? What were the first things that you put in and thought, okay, this needs a little bit of work?
Wow. It's just really committing on what kind of game it's ultimately going to be. There's the aspiration and the wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? And then there's like getting to a point where it's actually practical and you can believe it's going to happen. And I think there's a period of time where maybe one of the hardest things was getting that level of confidence that we could pull it off and that it could be done. So there were times in the earliest days of this project where it was maybe going to be a different type of game. And some of that is just because of how daunting of a task and trying to deliver the no compromises Call of Duty experience. And if we couldn't do that, then it was going to need to be something a little bit different. It was going to be, need to be purposefully a different experience. And so maybe that was the hardest thing. But I mean, we sort of covered it a little bit where it's about things like the controls and getting that stuff right. We had various technical challenges, creative challenges, lots of things over the life of the project that I think any game has. And Call of Duty Mobile had its own share of those. But that's game development. That goes along with the course. I think maybe just the ambition of the title was created some of the most interesting challenges early on.
And so we've had a couple of questions that I'm going to combine into one, which are essentially, what's next? What's next content-wise? What's next on the competitive scene? What's next in terms of player feedback and your kind of constant iteration? What is next for Call of Duty Mobile?
Well, the immediate what's next is our new season, The Forge, which I welcome you guys to all try. It has this kind of a post-apocalyptic theme to it. There's a new mode, Juggernaut, which is pretty cool. So it's like a PvP boss fight kind of thing. We have High Rise, which is an amazing map that if you've played Modern Warfare 2, you probably know High Rise, and if you haven't, it's a really good map. So excited by that. There's obviously the new Battle Pass, and you can earn stuff just by, for free, and then of course you can unlock the Premium Pass and get even more stuff. So that's kind of the immediate. But one of the things I'm super stoked about is our 1-year anniversary is coming up in October, and we're really going to go crazy there. So the planning for that has been going on for a while. And if you've not tried Call of Duty Mobile, it'll be a really good time to check it out. Maybe check it out now so you can kind of get your reps before we unleash that thing. But if you are playing right now, there's some cool stuff in store for the first anniversary. And all I can say is it's going to be our biggest season by far. And there's some really, really cool stuff happening to like the core stuff in the meta that you love right now. And if you're going through that weapon progression and stuff, there's some really cool stuff to come on that the team is really, really excited about, and they'll kill me if I say anything more about it. But those are the kinds of things we're leaning into soon.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to finish off with one question that I am very selfishly, as the host, going to sneak in. And I guess because, I've really loved hearing about this process. This game is a BAFTA award winner. I think it's safe to say it really has kind of blown people away. It is that COD experience we know, we love, we grew up with, but, in my pocket for me to take everywhere. So, what's the single most valuable thing you think you've learned from translating that to mobile, from kind of launching this brand new version of a beloved title?
Anything is possible. I mean, that's really the takeaway, because it doesn't seem like something that was feasible. Especially the further you rewind in time, the less feasible it seems. And then, in getting to where it is now, there's a huge audience. We're super humbled by the fact that so many people come and play in our playground every day. We're doing everything we can to make sure that it's the best place they can spend their time and come back to. And honestly, it seemed like maybe this was too crazy of an idea to pull off at one point, and that's my learning. So we'll keep that going as we think about what's next in Call of Duty Mobile. It's like, anything is possible, and we're going to keep pushing the envelope. I mean, last month we just added like a ton of space under our Battle Royale map. I don't know, for Battle Royale players, the Call of Duty Mobile version is pretty cool. It's got, recognizable Call of Duty map locations stitched into a huge environment, and we just expanded it with like a half a dozen new locations. That's the kind of thing we're just going to keep doing, is keep expanding the experience, expanding the world, and who knows what will be next.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I feel like we packed so much into that. I really, really, like I said, enjoyed hearing that process. It was, something I was, as you said, it seemed impossible when I first heard it was coming to mobile, and you totally pulled it off. So it's been really incredible to hear how you did it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. And, for the whole Call of Duty team, we're so grateful for the BAFTA recognition and the players. And thank you for having us on. We look forward to seeing you in the game.
Well, if you are watching and you haven't played, please do go and play Call of Duty Mobile. It is absolutely fantastic. Whether you are a Call of Duty veteran, whether you are brand new to it, I promise you it's very forgiving when you start. It really does hold your hand and walk you through that experience. And if you know what you're doing, if, like me, you're a total pro, definitely, you can, as we said, customize it. You can play exactly the way you want to. So go out, try that game. But thank you so much for joining us here today. Some really fantastic questions. You kind of put mine to shame. Thanks very much for that, everybody in the audience. But this was another fantastic masterclass from BAFTA. We've got lots more coming up for you. This one will also be available to watch afterwards. But that's all from us here today. So thank you very much for joining us.